Okay, welcome to this live stream. Let me just make sure that everything is looking good before we get going. Make sure that I have sound on here. What's it? Yep, sounds good. Okay, so today I'm gonna be working on this, um, the Queen sculpture. I'm gonna be sanding, doing a lot of sanding. I'll do a Q&A if there are people that have questions. But for the most part, I'm just going to be sanding. I have some water here in a little yogurt container. And then I have these sanding pads. This is 220 grit sanding paper. And that gets me to kind of this matte finish, which you can see in some areas it has this finish. And in other areas, I need to kind of get rid of some of the previous tool marks. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I have a couple of wood tools, so like a little wood dowel, popsicle stick, and this kind of thin wood tool, homemade wood tool for if I need to get into corners or anything like that. If you do have any questions, let's see, Onyx Loves is saying hi, good morning. Hello, welcome. If you do have any questions, anybody, as I'm going, feel free to ask those, or if you have any topics you'd like to discuss. Otherwise, I'm just gonna kind of be working. And that's going to be kind of the video for this week, just because I had other things that I was behind on, so I had to, I didn't get to editing a full video this week, so I'm just going to be doing this live stream. I'll probably do one before breakfast, and then I'll come back and do more after breakfast. But it's just going to be a lot of sanding. A lot of this kind of, let me make sure that you guys can see. Okay. And this design was taken from the chess set that I built. I'm still working on getting a final prototype of all the pieces. I had to redo the pawn, so it's coming. And then the first prototype is going to go to my brother Matthew. He came and helped at our place. I gave him a chess board, a homemade chess board, but I wanted to give him the first set, the first AJK chess set. And that one, I might make it available to the public. It's a lot of work casting the pieces and the molds. I'll probably need to redo some of the molds, so I'm kind of wondering how to make it, how to make it worth it for people. It'll probably be kind of a high-end sculpture item. I probably need to price it around $1,000, which is more than I was hoping, but just for the time and energy it takes to cast that chess set, that's just what it's gonna be. So this is a stone sculpture for a sculpture show that's coming up in Loveland, Colorado. That's going to be the sculpture in the park, and so I'm excited for that, but I do need to finish up this sculpture and probably do a couple more so that I have plenty of stone sculptures for the show. I wish this table was a little bit less wobbly for what I'm doing, but it is what it is. Let's see, and I need to get a actually let me move things around a little bit. So here you can kind of see my setup. I have a towel on top here, but I need to be able to dry off parts that I'm working on. So let me just just resituate this on top of the towel. Onyx Love says my favorite part of sculpting is sanding. Well, this is my least favorite part because it takes so long. It is kind of mindless, so you can like listen to audiobooks or do other stuff because it's not like you're making decisions as you're sculpting. It's just kind of sanding. It's just repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again. So there's not a lot of thought that needs to go into it, which is nice if you're listening to an audiobook or something. You're not doing a lot of thinking at this stage. Um, so I guess it can be kind of relaxing that way, but I really don't enjoy the sanding part. I think it's my least favorite part because everything's pretty much in place at this point. All the details and the design is pretty much solidified. This is going to be the design, but it's just getting rid of the tool marks from before, and so I find it to be kind of a boring stage. Let me make sure. But if you like the sanding part, that's great because it takes a long time. So it's a great part of the sculpting process to enjoy. Somebody's saying, are you going to see this sculptor? I'm not sure what you mean by that question. There might be a typo in there somewhere. Are you gonna see this sculpture? I don't know what that's referring to. But I need to, sell. Yeah, sell this sculpture. Yeah, I'm going to sell it. So this is for a show that's coming up in Loveland, Colorado, the Sculpture in the Park show. And so it's going to be with some of my other stone sculptures, and all of those will be for sale. Everything that you bring to the show is for sale. So it's, so yeah, I'm going to sell this. Pricing, I don't know. I still need to get a base, so I want to get a black base for this. This will probably be priced somewhere in the $2,000 to $3,000 range. My stone sculptures are usually more expensive just because it does take more time, and the material is a little bit more. It's more original, so every sculpture is like a complete original. There's not going to be another one like it because each piece of stone is just a little bit different. So it's not like a bronze where they make lots of copies. It's just a one-off piece, and that's why usually stone sculptures are priced a little bit higher than, say, bronze pieces. But yes, it'll definitely be for sale. See what I'm doing. And then as you wipe the sculpture, so when you're sanding, if you wipe it when you're wet sanding, and then as it starts to dry, it kind of shows you the areas where you can still see the scratches underneath. They could become a lot more visible. So I don't know if that's showing up. It's kind of hard to see on the live stream. The quality's not as good, but here I can see that there's still some scratches that need to be worked out. So I'm just gonna keep going. Let's actually get some backing with a popsicle stick, just to give it some more. And that backing helps to keep from softening these edges If you just use your finger and then you're sanding right next to that, then it'll just kind of soften this edge right here, which is not necessarily what I want. So I'll try to keep that edge sharp by sanding with the popsicle stick as a backing. Sandpaper grade, this is 220 sandpaper. This is like a sanding pad that you put on a machine. I've just found that these work pretty well for hand sanding. They're kind of tougher than the hand sandpaper, than most of the hand sandpaper. They last a little bit longer, so that's what I use. And I'll probably only go to 220 on this one. Let's see. I want to get into stone sculpting. Sounds difficult. Yeah, it is difficult. Time consuming. You might start with like alabaster or something. That one is a soft stone. You can do pretty much by hand. You don't even really need power tools for that one, just with some rasps. And you know, that one's so soft you can scratch it with your fingernails. Alabaster, or did I say alabaster? But alabaster is a really soft stone. I prefer harder stones, so limestone and marble. Those are the ones I like. I haven't done really hard stones like granite. I've done a little bit of basalt, which is harder than granite. It's a very hard stone. So I guess that's the only like really hard stone that I've done. And that took forever, and it was a fairly simple design, but it just, cutting and grinding just takes so long. But yeah, eventually I'd like to do a little mini course on stone sculpting, show you my process for kind of these more abstract sculptures and the tools I use and stuff like that. So maybe when I'm done with the hand sculpting course, which is not going to be too long, I'm going through that one pretty fast, and I think once I'm done. Oh, by the way, I think the summer sale ends today, the Proco summer sale. So if you're interested in getting any of the courses, there's a discount code summer sale. I think that ends today. And so if you want to get that summer sale, then I would definitely go and get any of those courses, the figure sculpting course, portrait sculpting course, or the new hand sculpting course are all on sale, as well as all of the other great courses from Proco. So I'll try to mention that a few times throughout the live stream. I always forget those kinds of things when I'm streaming. Let's see. I'm just kind of moving to different areas with this 220 grit sandpaper. And if you're doing marble or limestone and you want kind of a matte finish, then 220 is a good one. 220 or 320, somewhere in that range. If you want like it's super shiny, then you usually go up to 1,000 or 2,000 and then polish it. I could do that with this, but I find that when you polish certain stones, it makes them look almost like plasticky, like it makes them look like not stone. So you only realize they're stone when you try to lift them. And I prefer kind of a more matte, natural look. Like you can see this right here. If it was wet, it kind of looks shiny, like a plastic finish. But when it's dry, you can see that it's kind of matte and looks like stone, has a weight to it, which I really like. Let's see. good job taking on different types of materials. How did you get to know the Proco guy? So Stan Prokopenko, I just saw on his website when I was in college. I just saw on the website that says, "Are you interested in teaching a Proco course?" Get in contact with them, and so I reached out. We talked, and he thought it was a good idea to do a sculpting course, a figure sculpting course, kind of a basics course, and then I worked on that. The first course, his team took on a lot of the editing, but then the portrait course and the hand sculpting course, I took over the editing, so that just because their team has a lot going on, and so and then I was also able to keep a higher percentage of the sales with those later courses, though it's still a commission base, so everybody, Proco gets a chunk and I get a chunk every time one of those courses sell. But yeah, Stan's great. Stan is great at what he does, and I really liked the company that he built. I really admire him, not just as an artist, but as an entrepreneur, and he's very tech savvy. I'm not super tech savvy, and so he's really up to date with all these cool technologies that are happening. And he's just kind of got that entrepreneur spirit. He's I think he immigrated when he was young, and that kind of immigrant, like, entrepreneurial bent, his parents were entrepreneurs, and so I just really like his that element that you don't see in a lot of artists, where he just has that business mindset, which I think is great. But yeah, I've really liked working with him, though. He's in California. I'm the other side of the country, so I haven't worked a lot with him and his team personally. I think I only went there once to do a video, like a dragon sculpture that was kind of just to get to know me and test out some sculpting with his team and stuff. And then I was going to go over there and film the figure sculpting course there, but when COVID hit, then I ended up doing most of the filming myself, just from home, and then sending the footage to them. So that was just kind of how that ended up working. But yeah, I just reached out to him and asked if he'd be interested in doing a course, and he was. So let's see. Is it possible to make silicone mold without the mother mold? You can, especially if the silicone is really thick and it's like a smaller piece. But generally, if it's a bigger piece, anything that's larger, and you don't want to use a ton of silicone, and silicone is usually the most expensive part of the mold. The mother mold can be done with plaster, and that's usually the cheapest part. You can use plaster and then reinforce it with burlap or cloth, some sort of cloth. And so the mother mold's the cheap part. The silicone's the expensive part. So if you were trying for a cheaper mold, it wouldn't really make sense to use more silicone instead of the plaster. So you can do it, and especially for smaller molds, you can do the whole thing as in one piece or something. But I'd say for the most part, you usually want to do the mother mold so you don't have to use as much silicone. I want to take the mold on a plane, and I'm afraid the plaster mother mold will break given how they handle the bags. Well, just pack it really well. If you pack it really well, and if it's a well-done mother mold that's been reinforced with fabric, either burlap or another type of fabric, you could use old t-shirt or whatever. And if you've done a good job on the mother mold, then you shouldn't have an issue, even if they're rough with bags. Just pack it really well. Put the silicone inside the mother mold, and then maybe wrap that with some rubber bands or something to keep it closed, and then just pack it well with clothes or other things, and even if they're throwing it around, it should be good. And if you're worried, just make the mother mold extra thick, and the mother mold can be very strong, especially if you do it thick. You make sure there's no air bubbles, and you reinforce it with fabric. So that's what I would probably recommend, rather than trying to skip the mother mold, which would be very expensive. Though you could also send it, you know, if you're worried and if you feel like the people at FedEx or UPS would treat it better, then you could send it instead of taking it on the flight. So if you guys have suggestions for content, video content, I'd be interested in that. I need to keep creating, trying to come up with new stuff. It is kind of you know, you run out of ideas, and so it's always good to hear what people are looking for, what videos and information they find helpful. Let's see. Somebody's asking, will it survive a fall? Are you talking about this sculpture if it were to fall? Probably would if it was on wood or carpet. If it was on cement, it would probably break. If you dropped it on cement, it would probably break. But if it was on wood, I mean, it would dent the wood. It's a pretty heavy sculpture. But if you dropped it like on a wood floor, it might break, but I think the floor would be more damaged than the sculpture. Limestone's kind of a softer stone, so it's not super fragile, though this one does have like some hairline cracks and stuff that might open up, but for the most part it's felt pretty solid as I've been working it. So I'm not too worried about that. Though, you know, it's never a good idea to drop a sculpture. Let me see. Let me try to get into these inside areas. These are the ones that are a pain. It's like this inside part of the eye. It's very hard to get in and sand it. I guess I should get some like sanding bits that are just for sanding on a angle grinder or something. Because it is hard to get into these certain areas. Let's see. So this 220 grit is not too bad to sand with, but if you're sanding with a finer grit like 600 or 1000 or 1200, it actually starts to, you have to be careful not to touch the sandpaper while you're sanding, because it'll actually sand your fingerprints off and then sand right through your skin and you'll start to bleed and stuff. This one, the rougher sandpapers are actually easier. They don't sand through your skin as easy. They don't cut through your skin. But the finer ones are actually more of a pain. You have to be more careful with the finer sand grit, or with the finer grit sandpaper, which is not something you'd expect because they feel softer. You know, they don't feel rough, but they actually cut you up, or they remove your skin more than these thicker sandpapers. which is kind of interesting. So yeah, if you're interested in any of the courses, a figure, portrait, or hand sculpting course, now's a great time to get those. Last day of the sale, the summer sale, 20% off with discount code summer sale over at Proca.com. And if you join any of the courses, I look forward to seeing your work over there. I've been really impressed with some of the students' work. I should start posting that more because some students are doing really good. Yeah, but this is a lot of what sculpting is this boring stuff. If you're just doing the same thing, same basic motion over and over again, trying to get it smooth, then cleaning things off. And then as it dries, you can see if there's any scratches, where the scratches are. If you need to, you can mark them up. So yeah, I'm still seeing scratches here, scratches there, scratches in here, inside there, and on the eyelid. There's some scratches there, scratches down here. So it's getting better, but it is still, there's still quite a bit of, and I'm seeing scratches here. And then there's a lot back there. So these are kind of these are the areas, big flat areas like here at the top and some of the back. A lot of those can be done with like a hand sander or an electric sander. But these detailed areas, I just don't have the tools to sand inside those areas without messing up the details. So you have to, a lot of that you have to do by hand. And even if you do have electric tools, it's sometimes it's very hard to, you know, they remove so much material that it's hard to keep the details exactly the way you want with those. So even if you have access to tools, sometimes you need to go back to hand tools where you have more control over what's happening. You can see that kind of that It's the stone dust and water that builds up. That's what you want to see when you're sculpting, or when you're sanding your stone sculptures. You want to see that slurry build up. So people that are watching, I don't even know how many. I can't see. I'm have the other screen open. But if you're watching, where are you from? I'd be interested to see where people are watching from. If there is anybody watching. From Memphis. Cool. Memphis. I was walking. Your video on cheap mold making has really been of help. Thank you. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you found that to be useful. Yeah, that's a fun technique, and I've used it for a lot of molds. So, works great when you're sculpting on a budget. I should do some more mold making content probably. Does your brother play chess? Yeah, yeah, we play chess a little bit. He's better than I am, and he enjoys chess. No, he's kind of interesting. He also enjoys like MMA fighting, and he's pretty he's strong too. So we like to when or last year, or was it the year before? I guess it was the year before last year. We would go to the gym together and work out together, and he was pretty getting really strong, and so he's kind of an interesting. Uh, you wouldn't think that he's like super interested in chess, but he does enjoy chess. I do too, though. For me, you know the the negative emotion that comes from losing does not outweigh the positive emotion that comes from winning. So I'll play on like chess.com and I'll just end up in a bad mood because you win and lose about the same amount, but the losses are so much worse than the wins. So I just end up in a bad mood. So I try not to play too often because I just think, oh man, I'm such an idiot. You do dumb moves and stuff like that, and I'm not that good. So but it is fun. I think it's more. I find it more enjoyable to play in person than online. Though some people are the opposite. They like playing online rather. Somebody's saying chess is about memory. If you can remember chess strategies, your win rate can go up. Yeah, it's like remembering like what to do in what positions, and also just like being able to think ahead and then read your opponent, think about what they want, the game from their perspective. It's definitely a very intellectually challenging game, which I like. I think it's my favorite, my favorite board game. But it is very frustrating because when you lose, it's like I don't know, it's a mental humiliation. That's what I don't like about it. Let's see, let's grab this flat tool. And as I'm sanding, I'm trying to sand and kind of clarify things. So here, I don't like what's happening exactly. There's kind of this line is coming this way, and then it kind of goes another direction, but the transition is not that great. So I need to figure out how to address that. Might need a different type of tool, but we'll do it the best we can with this. You just want to make everything look intentional. All of the transition, all of the line work should look intentional, not accidental. And if it's a hard transition or a soft transition, it should be somewhat consistent. Or if it transitions from a hard to a soft transition, that transition should be a good looking transition. Because this is a little bit sharper, this is a little bit softer, but I want to transition between those two in a way that visually makes sense. These are things that people don't realize, that thought goes into it, but they just see the sculpture and they just think, oh, that looks good. It just looks good. That's what I'm going for. Yeah. It's looking a little bit better. Let's see if we can't get it just a little bit better. And that corner is looking. So what is that? And I think you get so passionate about it because you might be a competitive person. So would you say you are one? Yeah, I'm definitely a competitive person. So I get more frustrated. There's probably a lot of people that, they just play chess for fun and it's like no big deal and stuff. But I get so competitive that it just like sours my mood if I not necessarily if I get beat at something. Like I also really like to play table tennis. It's not if I get beat necessarily. It's if I feel that I'm playing below my. It's like I'm playing beneath where I should be at, and so if I feel like I'm doing things that like I know better or I should be better than that, that's what really frustrates me. So it's not even necessarily that I lose. It's just that I get so frustrated with myself that that's what really upsets me. But it is kind of there's a competitive element to that, but then also just kind of a self-critical element of like, I should be, like, I should know better than that. Let's see, that transition's starting to look a little bit better. So you say, so you have high standard for yourself when you do a task. I do understand that feeling too. Yeah, yeah. I try to hold myself to high standards. Um, Whatever it is. And then there's always that element of like, whatever it is, whatever you're doing, you know that you could do it just a little bit better. You know that you could try just a little bit harder. Regardless of how hard you did try, you know that there was like some fuel left in the tank, so to speak, with whatever you're doing. So with sculptures, I'm like, I know I could sand this a little bit more. I could get it a little bit more perfect, even when even when I decide to stop and be done. There's never a point where I feel like it's perfect. It's just that it's time to move on. The time has come, and it's gonna at some point it's gonna have to be good enough. But it is hard because everything you do, very rarely can you say you gave absolutely 100% and left nothing on the table with whatever it is, because we all know that there's like just a little bit more we could have done. We could have worked just a little bit harder, or we could have spent just a little bit less time on socials, or spending more time on the things that we are putting off. Or there's just so many ways that we could improve, that we know we could improve, but it's just hard to have the discipline to actually do those things. Let's see, that's looking better. Let's try it and see what that's looking like. It's a little bit better. It's not perfect, but the transition's looking little bit more, on purpose. And as it dries, I'm looking for any big scratches. I'm seeing some inside here, inside the neck area. So I'll work on that next. But as far as right there, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna stand up for a bit. Let me change the position on here so I can still see. Let's see. Oh, another thing that I'm working on is I'd like to do a sculpture, like a sculpture group, where maybe every month or every other month there's like a new pose. And then I also like to get into doing like sculpture kits. So I would send out like a sculpture kit that has the clay, the armature, and then there's a new pose every month or however often we do it, maybe every other month. And then there's some live streams, and we're all kind of working on the same pose, and then maybe even some prizes for students that do the best job on the pose, kind of like the sculpture competition I did. Was it one or? I did a while back. I think it's been a while since I did that competition. But something like that competition, because I like that there was a lot of people that were all sculpting together. And so I'd like to do something similar as like a sculpture group. Maybe it's like a subscription thing. Maybe it's cheaper if you just want to participate. Maybe it's just like, a $10 a month thing. But then if you want to get like new clay and a sculpting stand and all of that, I wanted to get into making those and shipping them out. And then maybe that's, $100 or $150 a month, and you get enough clay, 5 pounds of clay, you get a sculpture stand and an armature. And, or maybe you could choose between polymer clay or plasticine clay. I don't know. That's just an idea me and my wife were talking about, that as a way to just do something more with students. And then if you already have your own, if you already make your own sculpture stands um, and armatures and everything, then you can just, for maybe a cheaper amount, for $10 a month instead of 100 or 150, you can just participate and be eligible to win prizes. And then maybe there would be cash prizes or prizes in the form of sculpting clay or materials, or I don't know, other things like that. So that's kind of an idea we're toying with. We've tried making mixing some clays that I like to use, and I'd like to start selling those that are just the colorful clays melted down. So like either the clay from Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby, and then I like to melt them all down and sell them. But if you don't want to do the melting process, I was thinking, oh well, maybe I could melt it down into 2-pound bricks or 5-pound bricks, and then sell those as a just as a product, just to sell more stuff, and as something that's they would be pretty much in line with the price of other, if you try to buy 5 pounds of clay, that would be kind of in that price range. Maybe for 5 pounds it would be $30-$35 for 5 pounds, which is enough to do a 18-inch sculpture or something like that. Somebody's saying there needs to be a program for sculptors, teachers, so that they can have unlimited amount of clay. Yeah, that'd be nice. Well, I have actually been sent clay recently from a company I think they're kind of trying to make some new recipes for new types of clay. So, and I still need to test that out. But yeah, something like that. Somebody says that sounds fun. Yeah, I thought it would be fun to kind of everybody be sculpting the same thing, get a new pose every month. Maybe I could coordinate with, I really like Pose Space, and they've been good to work with me in the past. And maybe they'd be willing, and then maybe it's like maybe I could like censor the pose for people, and then if they want the full pose, then you could go to the website, the Pose Space website, and that way they have a reason to give the pose for these types of competitions, so that students go and buy the full thing, the uncensored one. And speaking of that, there is a free set of 10 poses. They're censored, but they're from Pose Space, and they're free over at Proca.com in the figure sculpting course. If you're interested in that, message me on Instagram, 10 poses, and I'll send that to you. The link, it's just part of the figure sculpting course, but they're free to download. They were just donated by Pose Space. So if you need some new poses and you haven't downloaded those, there's 10 poses, male and female poses for figure sculpting. And they have like, I think they have, what is it? Like 24 images of the figure turning around, so it's a good amount of angles. But yeah, some sort of sculpting program. Maybe I do that through Patreon or Gumroad or something. Probably Gumroad, because Patreon has been less favorable to conservative creators. Some of what they've done as a company have made me nervous. Well, I guess all the big tech platforms are kind of left-wing, but not all of them have banned people for political views, and Patreon has done that, so that makes me wary of being on there or growing something on there. So maybe Gumroad, though Gumroad might have done the same thing. Pretty much, it's hard to find a big platform that hasn't shown some bias against conservative creators. So we'll see what ends up happening. Yeah, if you're interested in that, just keep an eye out, and I'll try to keep everybody updated if we start doing those competitions, maybe monthly or bi-monthly competitions. To hone your sculpting skills, get better, have fun sculpting with some other people. Maybe there's a way to do like like a group where I can see students work as well, and they can join in on live streams or something like that. So that's just an idea, but that's something that would require quite a bit of work and forethought, and then it's hard to know. It's something that you kind of have to grow, and with a lot of these things, you don't know if it's going to be worth it until you do it for a couple months or even for a year or something, and then you kind of figure out, oh, there's maybe not a market for this, or there is. So we'll see what happens. Somebody's saying, I really wish companies would stop banning people over politics. Yeah, well, we'll see. They probably will at some point if there becomes enough of a social backlash when companies do it. But it's just that people don't care that much, especially if they're smaller creators and maybe people that people don't really care about, or maybe they have opinions you disagree with, so you think, oh, well, it's okay to ban those people. But the problem with it is that it's basically who decides what is politically beyond the Overton window or out of the realm of public discussion. And I think it should be decided legally. If there's laws against certain types of speech, like there's laws against libel, you can't libel somebody, you can't false advertise, you can't lie to get somebody to buy a product, you can't incite violence, so you can't say go attack this person or something like that. I think those are reasonable guidelines when it comes to free speech, and I think platforms should be required to pretty much allow speech that is inside of those legal boundaries. They should be required by law, because this is where the public conversation is happening. So even if it's a conversation you don't like or you disagree with, it's like, well, then, share that opinion. But the censors, I think they're doing something that's wrong, trying to silence people. And we all have people we disagree with that we think, oh, well, they shouldn't be allowed to speak. But the question is, like, who decides what is okay and what's not? And I think it should be through a legal process, not a billion-dollar company employees deciding, to ban certain topics because they don't like how it might affect the political landscape. So that's my view. But then I think that even governments that infringe on people's freedoms are wrong to do so. I think that we have we have a right to speak, to say what we believe is true, and to tell the truth, even if it's offensive, even if it's politically incorrect. Like, everybody has a right to their opinion. Everybody has a right to their religious beliefs, and everybody has a right to their political beliefs. And so countries where these big tech platforms are that are that are silencing their own citizens, I think that that's wrong. So my view isn't even that the companies should just obey the laws of the land that they're at. I think they should fight for the freedom of speech of people all over the world. But that's maybe a more extreme right-wing view. But certainly they shouldn't go beyond the law and become lawmakers themselves by banning people for political opinions. So what he says, good to hear good common sense coming from somebody in the creative space. Yeah, well, yeah, common sense isn't that common anymore, it seems like. And yeah, the arts are definitely a left, kind of controlled by the left-wing people. I think are generally more creative. They're more like push the boundaries, which is, we need those types of people, but we also need the people that are going to stand up for tradition and things that have worked. And so we need people to conserve what works, and we need creative people to come up with new ideas when things are not working. The problem is those creative people or people that are politically creative on the left have lost the conservation of, they've lost the value of conserving the things that have worked and that are, kind of proven to be good ideas. So they're like, well, what is the value of freedom of speech if it allows you to say things that offend me? Like, then I don't see its value. And so then they want to censor things. But the freedom of speech is only valuable if it protects people from saying things that are unpopular, because everybody can say things that are popular. If you can only say things that are popular, you don't have freedom of speech. And freedom of speech is important because your ability to think is important. You can't, and part of thinking is working out your position with other people, with dialogue, with political conversation. Yeah. And I think even, well, now, tech companies, they can even censor people without letting them know or anybody know. They can just silently reduce the reach of any creator. And I don't trust, it's like you can't trust the people that are in charge of that power, because they've shown to be biased towards one side. So that's what I have to say about that. Somebody's saying, hey, Joseph, I didn't know the chess pieces were going to be this large and in stone. Yeah, well, this is the only one so far. I'd like to do more because I liked the chess piece designs. We'll see if this one sells. And I'd like to do more chess pieces in stone. They're kind of fun. Though doing a whole chess set like this, you know, that's like a... Let's see, if this is going to go for 2,000 to 3,000, I'd have to charge that for just the labor and cost of stone and everything. So for a whole chess piece, what is that? Let's say 3,000 times... How many pieces are there? There's 8, 16, 32 pieces. So 32 times 3,000 is what? 90. So it's like $100,000. It would be like $100,000 project to sculpt an entire stone chess set this size. So somebody could have just a stone chess set of sculptures. So if anybody knows like a multi-millionaire that wants a $100,000 stone chess set with sculptures, just have them reach out and I'd be happy to do that. Must have missed it. Yeah. Somebody says I was going to say 25 in total. No, I think because there's like 8 pawns, and then 8 of the other pieces, so that's 16, and 16 is 32, so there have to be 32. You know, and then there's light pieces and dark pieces, and so that would be a lot of stone. Food's ready. Okay, I gotta go have breakfast, and then I'll be back. So today's gonna be a live stream day, so if you're interested, I'll try to be back and keep going. It's just working out the details. Guten Morgen, says somebody. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. So, all right, I will see you guys later. Stay creative, stay productive. I'll keep working on this after breakfast. Thank you, guys.